73 points, not 50, not 65, 73 points in an NBA. I was going to say NBA basketball game, but that's redundant. Either way, welcome back to the DomCast. This is the 4th episode of the season. We are here recording on December 5th. Some games going on right now, so I'm recording a little bit earlier than I did last week. I know I said I was going to wait until the very end, but the NBA just decided fuck all with the schedule this week. I'm pretty sure the most entertaining thing I saw was Cavs Jazz, and it really did pan out. Just watched that whole game. It was amazing. I believe in Darius Garland / Jarrett Allen / Evan Mobley supremacy for the future and a LeBron James farewell world tour in Cleveland, but we'll talk about that later. I don't know if we have much Cavs talk today, but we do have. It's gonna be a little bit different because I just don't have that much I'm happy about. Sitting here looking at my sheet, and there's literally 3 things written down here, and I think I'm gonna blow through them. I have way more that I'm unhappy, but really the biggest chunk is in surprising and interesting. So it's like that meme where the lady was telling the old guy to smile. She said a smile would be nice. He said, "There's nothing to smile about in my life. There's nothing to really smile about this week." There is, but I don't know, for whatever reason, just not that many things made it. Well, if you made it, I appreciate you, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Those links are in the comment section and description. I did put time markers in the comment section and description last week too. Hopefully it'll be the same way. It was a painstaking process, but I did the best I could. And it was probably a couple of seconds off. See if I can alleviate that this week. Either way, let's go ahead and get started because this should be another long one. Let's, excuse me. It was a long night last night, so it might be kind of difficult to hammer out a 2-hour podcast today. Let's just go ahead and start with happy. Just go ahead and knock it out. I said I was going to change from week to week, but we'll go ahead with happy. Happy number 1. We're actually going to start with Giannis here. We're going to start with Giannis versus the Hornets, which I believe was the last game that he played there. He has a right calf injury, which is never encouraging, but we'll see. The Bucks have just been dealing with injuries the entire year. We got the news on Lopez, which I'll be talking about later. That is not in this section. I just had a very specific thing that I wanted to talk about because Giannis dominated that game. Giannis had but it was another stupid Wilt Chamberlain stat line. It was definitely 40 something points, and there we go. Yeah, 40, 12, and 9 against the Hornets, and it makes sense. It's gotten worse since then. When they played the Hornets, they still had a functioning NBA roster. Now they've lost 4. They got 3 starters, I believe, and overall 4 rotation pieces to COVID. COVID is dropping 50 these days. Omicron, Unicron, whatever it's called. It is here, and that's making the NBA tighten up, and they're basically saying everybody needs to go get their booster because of the studies they did. And now if you don't have your booster, I believe the rule I saw was you're gonna have to go back to the game day testing, which you can miss a game, I assume, if you didn't do your testing, like Kristaps Porzingis did that one time. So fun stuff going on there in our 3rd COVID season. But as it pertains to Giannis, let's just rewind the clock like the game is happening that day. So everyone's healthy except Mason Plumlee was not there. So the Hornets have been struggling. We've already said this year they need a legitimate big to take that team to the next level. Mason Plumlee is not the big that's going to get them there, but also he's pretty much some of their only real size down there too. So he was missing, and that left the likes of a PJ Washington and whoever else trying to defend Giannis. And when I seen that, I was like, okay, cool, yeah, this is gonna be a dub for Giannis. Even if not the Bucks, Giannis is about to dub that man, which he did. So it's interesting, and I could not wait to talk about this because if you follow me on Twitter, by the way, almost at 100K, appreciate each and every one of you, even the bots, even the ones that, I don't even need to go into all that right now. Appreciate y'all. But you'll notice on Twitter this year, I am not trying to replace WOB with clips or anything. It's just that every morning, whatever I didn't get to see the previous night, I'll go and I'll do like my review. I'll even review some games that I watched. So and sometimes I just cut things that I found interesting. A lot of the times what you'll see me cut is Giannis footage. You'll see me cutting him shoot threes, spins, step backs, whatever he's done and experimented with this year. I post those because it's cool to see. Like I said at the beginning of the year when I made that video and said, hey, he doesn't have the pressure of having to win a championship. Now his game might go to another level. Well, here's the thing about not watching basketball games. and then still talking about them. Because I've been thinking about that lately. I was just thinking, it's not a big deal if you don't watch basketball games. Everyone has lives. We've got a million different things going on, especially these days. If you don't watch games, you don't watch games. It doesn't make you special if you do. But if you so choose to talk about them, even if whether you're getting paid for it or not, if you so choose to talk about it, you should indulge at very least, in some film study. Just at very least. So you don't say things like, hey, Giannis is worse this year. Or you don't scratch your head when you see some of the clips that I've posted. Because the funniest thing about this clip was he only shot 1 3 in the video. He only made 1 3 that game. And people, I don't know if something just snapped in people's head, but it was like 5 people this week that were like, yo, somebody tell Dom, Giannis isn't shooting good from 3 this year. Yeah, I know not a lot of people listen to the podcast. It is what it is, but I've been more than certain to read that out, that his 3-point percentage has gone down, or it's close to where it was last year. It has not improved, put it that way, but that he is taking them more and he's stepping into them more. I went through the whole fluidity of how his shot looks, that type of thing. But that wasn't even the point of the clip. The point of the clip was, hey, he is eating in a variety of ways, and then he's doing everything else he used to do. So the way he played that Hornets game was, in the first half, he just basically experimented with his bag. So he made a 3, he under the legs, spin, give you a bump, step back, fade away, those type of things that essentially people have wanted to see from him forever and have criticized him for not having. If you watch Bucks games or you watch Bucks footage, you will see him messing around with those a lot more than usual. So 1 3-pointer in the video, but not everyone. It just got on people's nerves. Apparently that I put a 3 in there and they're like, his 3-point percentage is down, you're posting it as if he's shooting them more. What about everything else he did in that vid? And then Twitter came with the facts, which is a very odd sentence to say, but I think somebody posted it in that thread, because there was another tweet out there, and I thought about saving this for the Twitter section, but it needs to be said now. There was another tweet out there that said, y'all remember Bucks fans saying Giannis is going to be scary, knocking down 3s and middies with his new shot? That's really where I say, if you're going to talk, just make sure you've done a little bit, just a tiny little bit of film work, just a little bit, because Giannis is shooting this season. By the way, shout out to Milwaukee Mamba. This is who found this stat. It was accurate as of when this was happening, and I don't think Giannis has played since then, so it's probably still accurate. Giannis is shooting this season from 10 to 14 feet, it's 47%. From 15 to 19 feet, it's 45%. Those same marks from last season, it was 34% and 32%. So from 10 to 14, he is up 13%. From 15 to 19, he's up 12. So he jumped 10% in both. Then he goes on a note, he's 26, he doesn't have a ceiling. And it was just crazy to me that went over heads, because you could those are the things that you see in a lot of the Giannis footage I post. It's not even necessarily just 3s. It's the work he's doing in the mid-range. You can actually, that tracks. Some things don't track with the eye test sometimes. This tracks with the eye test. And so it has been, because the Bucks have not been healthy up until now, which, by the way, they have not lost a game with their quote big 3 in of Middleton, Drew Holiday, Giannis, of course. They haven't lost a single game. But when they're not in, and they hadn't been, Chris Middleton was out for a while. We know Brook Lopez has been out. As this team has just been trying to piece itself together, you see Giannis just kind of free flowing. You see him taking more 3s, as evidenced again on his page. He's taking slightly more than he did last year. You see him experimenting from the mid-range and getting better from the mid-range. And even the part about his 3s, right? So let's just go and say, oh, okay, yeah, look, his 3-point percentage is actually, it's ugly right now. On the 4 attempts per game, it's at 28%. It's from 30 last year. Maybe it'll even out, and by the time this is over, he'll be shooting 30 again, or at least close to it. But all right, the whole thing with a player as dominant as he is, as you saw in the Hornets game, is that him experimenting with anything else and being even a little successful at it adds to his game. It's not like other players where they're not MVPs and they're not superstars already, and so if they experiment with something, it might mess something else up. No, this guy, if you have to, and I'm basically now reciting the script from the video I did at the beginning of the season, and it's come to pass. If this guy is now experimenting with, and he took fadeaways last year, some of the moves he did last year, but he's better at them now. So if you have to counter his drives, or he has a counter for you countering his drives. That just opens everything up for him, and it opens it up for his teammates. Drags defenses in, bends defenses, makes things collapse. It's just very little that he has to add to make a very big impact, which is why he's still great this season, why his team is great despite not having not been healthy. When they're all there, they don't really lose. It's just, I don't know, it just was not that difficult to understand, and it really showed itself in that game. The actual experimentation portion showed itself in that game. Where I was going with the point earlier is in the first half of the Hornets game, that's when he did all the shooting and the spins and not just he drove a little bit, but that's when he was doing other things. Then the second half came and it was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna be pre 2020 Giannis now. He just stepped through people because he could. He already knew he was bigger than everyone down there and stronger than everyone down there, but he was messing with things first, and then he went to work and he ended up with 40, 12, whatever I read out there, and a win. Which, by the way, it was a crazy game. LaMelo, insane 3-pointer that might have been an air ball if he shot it just a little bit softer. That flowed into a beautiful play to get, a very simple play to get Giannis downhill for the win. I actually saw the Hawks try the same thing the other day with Trae Young. But yeah, they just basically started Giannis in the backcourt, had him start running full speed, and then give him the ball, inbound the ball to him, and they could do nothing about it. Hornets could do nothing about it because he's not going to miss a layup with no pressure in the paint. But then I think PJ Washington or Miles Bridges, was it, threw the ball from half court and very nearly went in. It was a hood classic. So Giannis's development this year, and specifically what he showed in that game where you can clearly see the things that he does, yeah, that goes on the happy list. And I was happy that there was data out there to back up why I post things like that. Because I don't know, I guess I just assume too much. I don't know, it's not important, bro. It's not important. I just say if you are hunting retweets or likes off of negative commentary, just at least have something to back it up. That's all I would say. If you must be negative over some highlights, just know a little bit. And know that Giannis is improving. But we'll talk about the Bucks a little bit more later, because Brook Lopez. We're not gonna do that right now. It's not the happy section. That's actually a totally different section. So I'm already 1/3 out of my happy topics. The other one I had was, should I go there? The Celtics. It was really just the Sixers game. Horford's defense on Embiid. Now, that's how it was kind of billed. And Embiid just had a god-awful game. Off the top of my head, I'm going to say that he shot 3 of 17, and then I'm going to look, and yeah, I'm right, yeah. He shot 3 of 17. I think it's 17% in that game. He had 13 points. He did grab 18 rebounds. But I would say that in that game, which Boston barely won, it just makes me happy that Boston continues to beat Philly. Like, maybe they win some regular season matchups, but Boston always beats them in the playoffs. And I had a tweet I was trying to dig up because I said, even no matter what Boston is going through, they will always dub Philly, or 9 times out of 10 they dub in Philly. So having a very up and down season this year, but still able to take them anyways. I would say the play calling was not great in that game, coming from Doc Rivers, and they just kept trying to go to the same things with Embiid, and he could not get it going. Horford played some good defense. They really did make him take some tough shots and give him some tough looks. He made some of them, and then the ones that he missed do feel like shots that I do normally see him make, because there was even some over okay, we're crossing a road here, and it's Cantor and it's Freedom. Funniest thing about that is there's a score, if you look on the game summary, there's a thing that says Embiid blocks Freedom, and it's just, and the simulation is just acting up. But yes, there were some possessions with Ennis on him, and we know for a fact that's not the guy you generally want guarding Embiid, but he did a solid job in some of those contests. But Embiid is a tough shot maker, and he often makes a lot of those. But yeah, they ended up forcing him into some tougher looks. Philly could not overcome it. Boston won that game. Nobody else. Oh yeah, Seth Curry was the only other guy in the starting lineup in double digits. And I don't know, it was kind of interesting to see them keep going to the same post ups. But what else do you really do? I guess even if Al Horford isn't a big part of our future or anything, in the event that we match up with Joel Embiid in the playoffs, or we match up with him whenever, I guess it is a good guy to have around because he has a history of making Embiid take tough shots. And it's interesting. Celtics defensive effort is interesting because it'll happen like this, right? There's a certain guy that you have to key in on, and then you'll see a night like that where he turns around and it's not just Horford there. It's also Robert Williams has come over to limit his space. Like you'll see great defensive effort to take out a player like Embiid one night, then another you'll end up in a game and you don't know why you've lost it. That's just kind of the essence of being a Celtics fan right now. Then you end up in the Jazz game the other night, and then you just lose it was just a good match, and the Jazz just decided they weren't going to miss down the stretch. So I guess you can't really be mad at that. There were some complaints with Dennis Schroeder. I see people starting to get a little bit angry with him in fourth quarters. I know, like one of the first podcasts, I had said he'd been one of the brightest spots, but there was a time earlier in the season we played the Cavs and he took a fadeaway, I think, for the game, and Jason Tatum didn't get the ball. This was when Brown was out. Tatum didn't get the ball, and I was just thinking, was that really the play call? We went to a shooter free throw line fadeaway and not Tatum. I know Tatum isn't all that great this season, but still. Anyways, yeah, so cool stuff with Horford and Embiid. So I'm 2/3 of the way done with the things that make me happy. This is just amazing. There's so much content here, but I just don't understand how this happened because I wrote so much down and then I just like clip it where I think it should go, and 3 things made it there. One of them that made it there were the Houston Rockets, who are apparently taking off. I think they've won 5 straight at the time of this recording. They are playing the Pelicans tonight, which kind of, I still don't think it matters that much because Houston is not going to more than likely erase this 4-game deficit that they have to get into the play-in. But they do play the Pels, and that could swap them in the standings. Either way, Jalen Green, I know that he has been out. God, is he still out? Yeah, he's been out for quite a while. He's been out with the hamstring injury, I want to say. But they're winning games now. Christian Wood is playing well, and he was super happy. Whatever win started this whole thing, in the little press conference at the end, like you could just tell he was just happy to finally win a game. And I'm kind of wondering about him too, because I have him written down as possible trade bait. Because when this starts happening, they start winning. What if they do finesse their way into a playoff spot? I'm not sure that's exactly what the goal is there. But aside from all that, Sengun, man, I think it's Alperen Sengun, very fun to watch. There's so many good rookies this year that here on the podcast, on the NBA show that I do on Twitch, whenever rookies come up, it's very easy to gloss over him. Not just because he plays for Houston, but because there's just you're paying attention to what's happening with Mobley and they're winning, and you're paying attention to Scotty Barnes, and then even being in Orlando. Oh yeah, by the way, I got his name down. It's no, never mind. Why did I get confused about to say Franz Wagner? Did I get it right that time? That was kicking my ass at the first podcast. Anyways, there's just so many guys that I end up naming before I go here, and Sengun is a fun watch. There's not much I like more on a rookie than playmaking. That's why I love watching Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen play, because I feel like watching that big connection is just beautiful. Watching Evan slip a pass to him to a cutting Allen as he's getting to the dunker spot. Love watching Josh Giddey's playmaking, him hitting a cutter with a no look. That's always a fun experience. And Sengun as a big man, same thing. So the sentence I was about to leave was not super athletic. Let's just put it this way. He doesn't look super athletic, but he did absolutely body somebody like a week ago, or as a Rockets commentator would put it, shoved it down their throat, I believe was the terminology he used there.
Huh? Hey, bro, come on now, dog.
Anyways, yeah, as a playmaking big, I was looking. It's funny because you'll miss it in the stats. You'll see he only averages 2 assists. Even if you look at the potential assists, I think it's like 4 or 5 per game from him. But the passes that he does make, because when you're a rookie on a bad team, You should never really judge it by assists per game or how low they are, because there's a lot of things going on a young bad team, like different scheming, different play calls, Jalen Green stepping back, taking difficult shots. Like there's a lot that goes into it. But if you actually watch the game footage, you'll see him slip a very nice overhead pass to Christian Wood, actually, as he's being double teamed in the post. You'll see him do something crazy. OKC was just getting fucked up this whole week, but yeah, that specific highlight, I'm thinking he had one where he basically did the Rondo behind the back fake pass in the post, which is crazy because how many big men do you know how many big men do the Rondo fake? This is not a thing that I went and looked up and read before this, because I wasn't thinking that hard about it. But now that I think about it, the one that he did in OKC, we post the guy up and then faked it and then threw the pass, or maybe he scored on that one. Either way, so how many times do you see that? Either way, yeah, he's crafty with what he has. He shoots the ball as a big, which you absolutely need, and I'm sure he's going to get better at. So if you have a shooting, playmaking big, basically, it's very smart. It's like a multi-use guy, right? Keep him around, you build with him. It's pretty much a steal. That's pretty much a steal. Everyone was just looking at Jalen Green, but then it's like, hey, we got this other guy too. You got two what are gonna be solid rookies. Obviously Green has struggled this year, but yeah, that's something to build with, which is why you wonder, because they're not done building. So that's why I guess I should, even though the Rockets, just to show you who they have beaten. So this is a 5-game win streak for Houston. I know they dubbed the Magic off the top of my head. They did beat OKC, so that's 2. Oh my gosh, wait, does this actually, yeah, because they haven't won that much. This is actually stretching back to the Hornets, wasn't it? Yeah, so they beat maybe it's not as humiliating now, yeah, because they beat the Hornets, beat OKC twice, beat the Magic, beat the Bulls, so that's where it started. And that blown Vucevic PNR coverage where Eric Gordon just turned a corner on him. That's where it started, and it hasn't stopped so far. But yeah, I do wonder, because now it's looking like, okay, well, they clearly need more. The whole thing that happened with John Wall last week when we talked is like, you don't really want to bring John Wall and put him over a young guy when you know he's not going to be here that long. Then you fuck around and have a dynamic duo between Wall and Christian Wood, and now you're in the playoffs. It just kind of ruins their whole timeline. So I'm just putting it in your ear that I think there's a chance maybe Wood will be shopped. Wood will be shopped. Which I don't know if there's something there. Yeah, I'm just putting it in your ear. There might be a contender out there that sees that and is like, hey, we can use a guy. We use a guy like that plays big, but also shoots, and has been talented for years now. Remember when he was hidden in Detroit and then he left, and I thought that was gonna make a difference when he was there with Harden, and then John Wall came, and John Wall was still lightning fast. That's where I overreacted and was like, hey, maybe Harden will want to stay, and he undermined me 2 days later. So just putting it in your ear. But Houston at the moment, there's a couple of win streaks. Houston has a win streak right now. The Spurs have a win streak, and their hopes are actually a bit more realistic. So shout out to the DeJounte Murray. I told y'all a week or two ago, I gave him a little segment. Very fun to watch, him and Keldon Johnson. But they're not even, I don't even know if they qualify. I don't know if I called them bad. At the time, they were like second to last. Either way, they're a game and a half now out of the 10th for a struggling ass Portland team. A struggling Portland team. Injuries, firings, coach disses. It's just all bad right now. This might be the year, man. But we'll get to Portland in the unhappy section. So San Antonio has won 4 straight, I think, actually. So surging a little bit. A couple of Texas teams surging in the back. We'll see where it goes. But yes, also just putting that in your ear. If you don't pay attention to anything in Houston, if you don't like Jalen Green for whatever, just watch some Sengun playmaking. Watch some Sengun highlights. They've got something in this kid. It's going to be fun. All right, well, believe it or not, that takes us at 24 minutes here out of the happy section. That puts me into that puts me, am I doing a Mario bit? That puts me in a neutral mood. Also, only a couple of things, and then it gets bad. There are 2 things in neutral, because I just mentioned the Spurs winning. I didn't really have much more to say about the Spurs. I've already done a DeJounte Murray praise blog, so I can pretty much go ahead and take that out. Neutral. Neutral on OKC, right? Because they just had it was just a bad week. It was just a bad week for them. Oh gosh. Luckily for them, whatever Drake said in that interview, as a matter of fact, it's funny how this relates to Drake, because the day before the happening, he was in the front row with those old people. He was in the front row of an OKC game. Incredible content. And then this happened. So the Drake curse lives apparently. But they, before the Grizzlies event, lost to the Rockets. And Jayshawn Tate just found a bit and just went with it. The entire fourth quarter, it was just drive after drive after drive. Then he had one block near the end where he volleyball spikes it so hard to the ground it comes back up into the hands of the Rockets. And that was the start of it. So great performance from Tate there. Very strong performance. And OKC loses that one on their home floor. And then going into Memphis, where I should have had Memphis in the happy section. I'll talk about Memphis here, whatever. Because I guess it would be, I could reach and say it's neutral because of Morant being out. Then they went to Memphis, and I was watching the other game, whatever other Hood Classic was going on at the time. I was watching that game. Then I pulled out Game Time app. I saw the score was something like 130 something to 60 something. I was like, hold up. I actually thought it was a glitch. I really did think it was a glitch. And I turned it on, and the crowd was just quiet. They got louder as they realized, I guess they started to realize how much history was in the making. And then they got louder. But I went there, even they were bored. So obviously Giddey wasn't playing. Dort, I don't think he played over 30 minutes. Shai Gilgeous wasn't playing. No Favors. So didn't do OKC a favor there. I don't think it would have changed it. And they ended up losing by 73. And I haven't heard a word about it since. I don't know if it's just because I haven't looked for it. I don't think I saw any of the player interviews. I don't know if there were player interviews. It's the biggest blowout in history, folks. We have witnessed a lot in the last couple of years. Now we've also witnessed the biggest loss in NBA history. And it's just like, man, I tweeted out, there either has to be consequences for the whole team that was playing, possibly demotions, or they just never talk about it again. It seems they've chosen option B. So we'll choose option B. I'm neutral about that though on OKC, because again, it's just kind of like history happens sometimes, right? Sometimes you just wake up and go play Memphis without John Morant, and Desmond Bane only scores 2 points, but you just get manhandled. It just happens. So see the OKC Thunder get healthy, get some of their guys back. I did a Lou Dort piece a little while back, and they are dead last right now too. So maybe this is best for them, honestly. Maybe it's best that they sit back there and then pair Chet Holmgreen with the crew, and all of a sudden they're setting the records. The Grizzlies, I would say neutral. They really should be in the happy section, but they're here now, so this is just what it is. Memphis lost John Morant, which it happened so close to the podcast that I just didn't write it down. And I also didn't know what it was at the time, because they said just knee sprain, but I thought they were going to say like name the ligament he sprained or something, or a timetable. Still to this moment, I haven't really gotten the information, because it was no contact and it looked scary. It looked scary. I even think I saw Achilles trending, and I was just like, oh god, no, it's happening. The John Morant injury prophecies are happening. Well, he's out for an extended period of time. In Memphis, if I was counting it right, they hadn't lost since then. And so it's been fascinating, because with a team like Memphis, and they're not a terrible team outside of him at all. That's not really where I'm going with it. It's just they lose an impact player like him, and you think, okay, yeah, they're about to slide. They haven't lost. They lost that game, which was against the Hawks. You beat the Kings, you beat the Raptors. That's a good win. You just set a record on OKC. You beat the Mavericks. You did not have Luka. But the big thing that's been going on there, and I don't know, yeah, I definitely didn't mention Desmond Bane in a previous pod, but Desmond Bane is having a good year. It's a good second year. And full transparency, I did not realize Boston traded him. Be totally real with you. I knew who he was last year. But he wasn't quite popping like he is now, so it wasn't really mentioned. And now, especially with the predicament Boston is in with this roster, I'm looking like, okay, how did this happen and why? Either way, he's up to 16 points a game now. His shots are way up. He's taking 5 more shots a game, and it helps that it doesn't help that Morant is out, but obviously, you know, he's going to see a bump in production. It kind of has to. He's at 47% from the field. He's at 40% from three. He doubled his he did not double it. He's taking 3 more threes a game. And it's him scoring in a variety of ways not right now. Seeing him put the ball on the floor a little bit. This is at least a positive for his development. And I've been kind of looking too at JV. Y'all know I mentioned Jonas Valanciunas. I guess I'm gonna guess they ended up letting him go because they didn't want to pay him. But now that he's in New Orleans, hitting 7 threes and a half, it's starting to look a little bit crazy to not have him on a specific roster. But anyways, yeah, I just definitely had to give Memphis that shout. I hate that Moran is out, and I hate that I don't necessarily know when he's coming back. But to not have lost a game so far, and then they're gonna, oh gosh, speak of the devil, they're playing New Orleans next, and then they're playing Brooklyn, which I think that's kind of where the buck will stop. But yeah, New Orleans should. Yeah, I don't know. It depends. Which Ingram are we gonna get? We're gonna get 7 of 21 Ingram, or are we gonna get 16 to 22? I guess that just totally depends. But yeah, good stretch for them. Good stretch for Desmond Bane. Wish he was a Celtic. And Memphis, it's another good building block for them when they are healthy. It's another good building block. That's one of the things I've been happy about in standing Ja, which is so much different. Like, it's just, the whole thing has just gone so much different. I swore it was going to be Zion I stand, but it's been Ja, and you got drafted by a franchise that's got multiple young pieces, and Bane is one of them, man. The bane of the Grizzlies' existence. I don't think that really means anything or goes with the theme at all. Neutral. Vooch. PNR. You know, Vucevic, first of all, has been playing well as of late. So I do want to start off by saying that. There's just been some miscommunications on pick and rolls, and because I am so curious about how this is going to look long term, i.e. in the playoffs, when I see things like that, I'm not encouraged. But let's just start again, because it is in the neutral section, so I guess that means there's some good and bad, right? If you make it into this section, there's something I like about the team, and there's something I don't like, and then that's how you end up here. Yeah, no, Vooch at this moment in these last few games, first of all, yeah, I had New York in the unhappy section, but I'm just gonna go ahead and take it out and have it in the neutral here, because there's no reason for me to talk about the Knicks that much again. But it kind of mixes here. They gave Vooch so many open looks in that game that they just played 2 games ago. This is where Vooch scored 27 points, and I believe he was 6 of 6 and 3, right? 10 of 18. Okay, this one he was 5 of 9. He was 6 of 6 against looks like Charlotte. Yeah, that's what that looks like. So he's 5 of 9 in New York, and it was crazy because, first of all, this is exactly what you need from him. These last few games are exactly what you need from him. He had 30 against Charlotte, 27 here. Then they won in Brooklyn. He really didn't perform all that well, but at least these last 2, you absolutely need this, because for the problems that you might end up having on defense, he absolutely has to spread the floor. But what was so peculiar about this one was the space that the Knicks were giving him. And so it involved Mitchell Robinson a lot. There'd be a pick and roll with Ball and Vooch would pop. And every photo you see Robinson doing like the Naruto run back to Vooch to get his hand up, because he's dropped kind of far to contain the ball handler. It was just strange, because in some of those it didn't really seem necessary, and it also seemed like there had to be an adjustment somewhere, whether it was on the court or whether it came from Tibbs, who at least in Boston days and shortly thereafter was known for his defense, and hell, even last year. Yeah, it's not the same thing this year. This will kind of lead us into the unhappy section, because it'll be more Knicks I'll be talking about. So yeah, they definitely are going to get their own section. And yeah, Vooch, that was pretty much why the Knicks ended up losing that game. It was more than just that, but he ended up hitting many monumental threes, and they were wide, like wide. And so I guess I was just confused on where the adjustment didn't come from and how Mitch gave him so much space. Because the next game I was like, okay, well, if you're struggling on shooting big men like that, what's up with the Jokic? Mr. Jokic coming into town. Now, of course, Knicks lost that game. That's becoming a theme. But It wasn't the same thing though. It wasn't just a bunch of pick and pop. It was really Jokic using his size and just straight bullying and shooting over. So it was a little bit different. So yeah, so a couple of good games for Vooch, at least, just positive signs. Nothing super duper yet. He's still having a pretty average offensive season for Chicago, and that's part of what will make you worry. Because the game plan could not have been to leave him open because he's struggling right now. The scouting on Vooch is he's a shooter, so that could have been it. But anyways, he's had in the last 2 weeks, there's just been some major miscommunication between he and Caruso. You know, it's only 2 possessions, so it doesn't fully prove anything. And there actually is a lot of possessions where Vooch is solid. Of course, we're not in the playoffs and they're not hunting it every play. But the one against the Rockets I talked about last week, it was clear miscommunication. The one that happened against the Nets where they left Harden wide open. So there's a screen and is a Harden and LaMarcus Aldridge screen. Aldridge, big human. So Caruso tried to fight over it, but quickly realized he was not going to be able to fast enough to contain Harden. So instead, he pretty much just switched on to Aldridge, and Aldridge started rolling immediately, and he had the angle. So I do want to be fair to Vooch. Aldridge is rolling. He does have the angle. So Vooch was kind of forced to drop back at least a little bit and get some hands up to make sure the pass didn't happen. But also, it was like, that's the crux of my worry for the playoffs. So I guess I hadn't been able to describe it as well in past podcasts. I kind of mentioned it, but in the specific play, he doesn't have tremendous foot speed in situations like this where he's singled out, or if his guard dies on a screen. And so as he's dropping, he did his job and secured the lane. There was no pass coming over to Aldridge, but then there was never an effort or any type of gesture to get back to Harden. There was he just dropped and Harden stopped and looked like, are you serious? And then Vooch just kept walking backwards instead of trying to get out. And of course, it's a Harden 3. Now, the Bulls do go on to win that game. DeRozan he's a god this season. Levine is god squared this season. So they go on to beat the Nets, but that's a specific play. It's twice now where it's either miscommunication or it's confusion or it's lack of maybe effort or lack of the tools. Maybe again, Vooch is a big ass guy and he does not have that great of feet. So if something like that happens, then he just turns into 3 points. So interesting possession, but Bulls Nets definitely was a good one. I've done enough talking about DeRozan's mid-range game, so I really don't need to give you that whole spiel, except to mention that he absolutely did it. He deployed every weapon in his arsenal to destroy Brooklyn last night. Actually, it was everything: the spins, step throughs after the spins, fades, and ones. DeRozan is on one, and I haven't exactly mapped that out in my mind, but I'm pretty sure he's right now he would have to be a top 10 player more than likely. I would have to sequence it out all the way, but I would assume DeRozan, the way he's playing right now, not a good defender too, so I guess you could factor that in, but DeRozan might be top 10 at the moment. Anyways, that will take us into unhappy, so we can go ahead and roll into the Knicks from that, actually, because I think it's a good transition. This is probably the second biggest one, but really there's a lot more stuff in surprising and interesting with the Knicks. So I already told y'all their defense against Vucevic was just absolute piss. But what had happened was, when I made the podcast last week talking about point guard Alec Burks, they actually went with that. That's why they were here. I don't know why I deleted that part, or maybe I have it in the interesting section, but the Knicks are just doomed to be in the unhappy section. I mean, their fans are unhappy, and maybe Celtics fans are unhappy. We just all be happy together and constantly return to this section, even though I had a game that I was happy about with Boston. Anyways, Kemba Walker got put out of the rotation is where they went with it. So it's so funny that happened once again, even though I waited all day. That happened after the podcast dropped. I waited all Sunday, and then it's like it just outweighted me. And so I talked about it, and Burks had performed well. And I was wondering if that was really the direction they were going to go. They're going to play with the lineup. I did not see them taking Kemba just straight up out. That part I didn't. I thought he wasn't going to start after a while. He's not playing. So that has sparked some fascinating conversations, i.e. Gilbert Arenas saying that it was personal. He said that D Rose was Tibbs' guy, even though D Rose isn't the one starting over him, but he's trying to basically say that Kemba wasn't getting a fair shake when really he's already negative on defense. His health, you never know what's going to happen with that, and he's not really giving you good offense, so that's how you end up out of the rotation. First, I don't agree with Gilbert with it being personal, but yes, I am shocked it's out of the rotation. I've said that. In either way, I mean, since that happened, he started at point guard for the Hawks, and it was like cool. But L to the Nets, close game. Julius Randle complained afterwards, saying the refs told him he's strong enough to deal with certain contact. It doesn't affect him the same way it affects other players, so they call it differently for him, which is definitely kind of interesting. Might talk about that one near the end of the podcast. Maybe I'll come back to it. I notice a lot of the times I say that, then I don't. Then they lost to the Bulls, also a close game, so they lost to the Bulls again, actually. Then they lost to the Nuggets. A tough stretch of teams. You play the MVP, and then you play what could be the MVP this year, and you play Alex Caruso. It's a tough lineup of games. And the thing is, aside from the Nuggets, they were like barely losing these games. It was two close ones. I wonder what happens here, because Derrick Rose, because of his injury history, I don't think he'll ever, and he's just found such a solid role as a bench guy that he'll never fully get up to starting. Burks does his job from 3, but that's why I was kind of hesitant on it on the podcast last week, because I was thinking I don't know that that's the long term or even the answer this season. But then you start getting into talking about trades. I guess the big thing with Kemba is once you take him out of the lineup, apparently, well, I guess it makes sense, the defensive rating is actually up. I think it's one of the worst with him in, and then much closer to what it was last year without him. Yeah, that's what's happening with the Knicks though. Julius Randle is still, he plays well against the Bulls because they obviously just don't have size to really guard him, so they rely on like a couple of possessions near the end to kind of beat him, like they did in the game that I broke down. But I don't know. They're just in a weird place. They're just in such a weird place after having added all this talent. I really thought they were in a better position. And I even thought Kemba, you'll notice I said last week, I thought he was hurt because I saw him fall and grab his knees. So I thought he'd been sitting out because of that. And Tibbs was like, oh no, he's actually just not playing. It's like, okay then. So they dropped him. Mitchell Robinson definitely seemed like he found some, I guess kryptonite is not even a term for it, because it's not like he's some superstar when he's not playing these guys. Just dragging him basically out of the paint is tough, because you can rim protect, but those pick and rolls, bro, that's what I'm telling you. It's what it comes down to in today's NBA as a big on the defensive end. Can you contest? Can you get back quick enough? It's that type of thing. Well, don't need to do a whole lot of Knicks talk. That was kind of just the conclusion to what happened last week. I don't know what's in Kemba's future, because he was playing so bad, which is why I disagreed with Gilbert Arenas. He's playing so bad with the Knicks that I'm not sure, what trade is out there and what team could use that type of production. Or maybe you'll say he'll fit with a better team, because there are a lot of mouths to feed in New York too this year. That's one of the big differences. That's something that they're adjusting to. But it's only a quarter of the way through the season, right? If we're going to talk about, because nobody on the Knicks is actually injured. Yeah, the Miami Heat got injured. That happened. That did happen. What did I say 2 or 3 podcasts ago when I was talking about the Miami Heat, and I was like, oh, I'm not exactly sure if I have a reason to be down on them. Really, that reason probably would have been Duncan Robinson. I think that's what I was looking for. But at the end of that, I said, yeah, they just need to stay healthy and just build, because they've got a lot of what they need. And they have lost everything. The continuity that they were going to have because they were healthy and they could finally build and COVID wasn't ravaging them. Well, Bam Adebayo tore something in his thumb. He's going to be out for a month at least, I think. And Jimmy Butler's been gone with, I'm not exactly, is it the ankle? I'm not exactly sure where Jimmy Butler's gone, but he's out. So the question that I had when I said, oh, Tyler Hero, like this is a great season for him, but he's got to do quite a bit for that team right now. And they're riding his hot streak pretty closely. I guess maybe that's another thing I was probably searching for. Like they're riding this hot streak pretty closely. Now, all of a sudden, they are going to be dependent on him to be in games. No Jimmy, no Bam. You're starting Deadman, I believe. Then the guy Omir that's coming off the bench. Obviously, neither one of them give you anything that Bam is. And then Butler, he was averaging what, 25 or 26. So Hero's looks are not going to be as clean, especially because Duncan Robinson is also just, I guess, professionally podcasting now. So it's tough. A lot of that falls on Hero's shoulder, and I think he's gonna be struggling. He's gonna be struggling with the heroics. 15 points against Milwaukee in an L. Yeah, 18 here, 7-16. It's not terrible, but a 9-23 night against Cleveland in an L. I think before that he missed a game where they just said he was overall sore. It is disappointing to say the least, because even when Miami does come back, I don't think anybody has like an ailment that's going to ruin their whole season. But when they do get back together now and on the floor, they have to kind of pick up where they were and build. And is this gonna, how much is this going to mess with Tyler Hero's start? Because he was playing great basketball, but now you go through a month or so of really having to, and I'm not sure when they're getting Butler back either, that would be a big help. But still, even when they do get Butler back, without Bam, it's just, man, that's a tough bid. That's been their problem. Continuity was their problem last year, guys in and out, and now here we are again. So I guess what I'm most going to be interested in, first of all, is seeing if Duncan Robinson can hit a shot. I think he had one solid game maybe this week, so interested in that, but also interested to see what this does to the season that Hero was having. Because if they could have just stayed healthy and he could play that role and he could be given the freedom and space to play that role, then you go to the playoffs and you're good. Maybe Duncan Robinson has found his stroke by then, but now you're dealing with that and guys out, so everybody's fitting into different roles. It's tough. It is tough. You're gonna need more out of them that you probably didn't want to be yanking out this early in game, what is this, 24, 21 for him because he's missed a few. That is super duper disappointing, and they're probably going to yeah, who knows, they're probably gonna fall a good bit, but we'll see when they get Jimmy back. If they get Jimmy back and he does what he did last year, where there were some MVP whispers for him last year, I don't know if you all remember, but if he comes back and he has a performance like that again and Hero can be kind of comfortable, maybe they can survive long enough to get Bam back, and this can just be one of those things that happen. But super unfortunate for a team that really looked like they could make a run to me this year once the pieces really fit into place. Bad things for Miami Heat. Super unhappy about that. Really unhappy about the way the Suns and Warriors win, because we just can't have anything, bro. We just cannot have anything. Just as a note, I guess I wrote it down, but it's not going to be a big story. I already talked about it, about the Hornets getting health and safety protocol. It's happening pretty much like all over the league now. Javonte Green's got health and safety. COVID is making a comeback, bro. It's coming back 3-1 in the NBA. I mean, it never left the regular world, but it's making a comeback in the NBA. Starting to get a little bit worried about those crowds, because I'm not going to say I'm not watching crowdless basketball, but bro, have you went back to watch bubble highlights like religiously? Anyways, it started off okay. Suns Warriors started off interesting. I think that it was funny because Charles Barkley said before the game the point about DeAndre Ayton and size and how that was gonna play into this matchup. I even wondered about that because on Tuesday night, that's when the show is. We always do those shows on Tuesday because it's before the TNT matchups. At the end, I was talking with the video coordinator guy, which, by the way, that was my favorite guy I've worked with so far. Gotta bring him on the pod sometime because he knows it all. Anyways, yeah, I was talking about Aiden and the impact that would play, but Twitter was just not trying to hear that at all. Once Charles said that, they were saying, "Oh, this is an outdated take," which it kind of is, because a big doesn't just shut everything down, and it hasn't been that way for a while with the Warriors. I just did that video and mentioned that with how they overcame the Clippers. However, in that matchup, that's the one solid takeaway, because he had two statistic good games. They got blown out in the second one because of health, but in the first one, when it was more or less even, and then they lost Booker. Yeah, he was the tone setter. They played through him. They gave him the ball, and he was super aggressive, as if he'd gotten his contract. And it was pretty much the difference. It controlled the pace. All of a sudden, you've got the Warriors not really able to get in transition. Obviously, if a big guy is down there scoring, now you're walking the ball up. But that is interesting, and I wonder, that makes me wonder, because I've now been asking about Wiseman and how he fits this team for a while. Because a lot of that happened on Kevon Looney, Draymond Green, and then obviously Bielitsa can't guard him. That's not what he's there for. And so I'd been asking, well, Wiseman, especially with him, if he's not going to be shooting much this season, what's his impact on this specific team? We'll see. I'm not sure. Again, we haven't seen him in so long that I'm not even sure what he's going to bring, but maybe it'll be something better than a Looney could give you on Aiden. Maybe it could be a bit more size and strength down there, but I don't know, because Aiden is just like that. That's why I said pay him. That's why I said pay the man. As far as if you're Phoenix, you don't even gamble with losing something like that when he could be if they were in the conference finals, who knows, maybe he could be that difference. So that's the one solid takeaway, and I keep saying that because there's not really much else. These matchups, they just weren't healthy, man. They weren't healthy. Mikal Bridges went down in the second game, scared me to death, because I was really enjoying watching this guy play defense. Is the wingspan. He could, in this room I'm sitting in right now, he could probably touch both walls with his fingertips. To be honest with you, I don't really think that came out right a bit. That honestly don't sound exactly how I wanted it to sound. That's kind of crazy. Anyways, I ain't even got the sound effect for that one, bro.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Because it's getting ridiculous.
Anyways, he got hurt and it was dislocated, but nothing tore, so that's good. I guess he'll be back. But in the first game, Booker got hurt. We're already short of Klay Thompson. Iguodala has been out for a while, which if you were watching the Warriors, he actually is important to the way the ball moves on that team and their rotations. So in short, we didn't get a healthy match, and you could only take little bits and pieces, and Aiden is one of the bits that I took. Booker was having a pretty solid game, I believe, before he went out. We'll be talking about him a little bit more later. And I did, like, game one, I did find it interesting. Like, it's a thing where it's no Klay Thompson, and Steph is having the worst game of the season. As a matter of fact, was it the worst shooting game of his career? Or it was the worst shooting game in a while, if not his career. And the game was still close until the end, because the rest of the bench came to play. The support pieces came to play that game. And so when I see things like that, it's like, it was close before Booker went out. It's a problem. And Steph wasn't really hitting, and again, no Klay. And then Booker went out, and then they won. So then you can make the argument that way. Hey, once Booker went out, they should have lost. That just shows you how good the Suns are. That just shows you where they are as a team when they at least have Mikal Bridges and everyone else there. But again, this is why I don't like this, because you're just kind of like reaching all over the place. You don't really know much. In the second game, once Bridges goes out and you already don't have Booker, it's like, okay, this means nothing. Chris Paul and Aiden, if that's what's there in the playoffs, then it's a sweep. So don't really take much from there. Steph still didn't have a great game. He's actually kind of, I guess for him, kind of in a slump. It's a short 3-game slump. They lost to the Spurs as well, and he did not have a good shooting game. But to the game one, I guess that's the last thing I'll discuss there. Mikal Bridges absolutely did play good defense. The Suns as a whole play good defense on him. When there was a screen, Aiden was coming up really high. Exactly what Monty Williams said is what they did. It wasn't just coach jargon. They really did make most of his looks that night as tough as possible, which is why I was confused, because I don't know if it was from the same account, but there was an account going around on Twitter saying, oh, Steph missed 13 open shots. It wasn't the Suns defense. And I was watching the game and I was like, I didn't see 13 open missed shots. Then I went and reviewed the footage too, and unless we have different definitions of open, I still didn't see 13 open missed shots. I saw really hard looks. Even him getting to the basket was made difficult by Mikal Bridges. He just couldn't get going. And but in the playoffs, health assumed, all of a sudden Klay Thompson is there with his gravity. That shifts things a lot. because I still get the sense that it's with a contending team like the Suns, not that they treat the Warriors like they were last year, where there was just Kelly Oubre and you could single Steph out some games. Not necessarily like that, but still like what I said when I was talking about the MVP race last week. Jordan Poole is cool and he's having his best season, but it's not a second superstar on the floor with Steph, or even a second. I guess, I don't know. Dre is technically my name. He's an all-star. He's having a good defensive season as usual. But as far as like offensively, there's not a second offensive all-star superstar on the floor with him right now. So you can still be Coach Monty Williams and say, we're going to make this look as hard as humanly possible and really deploy every effort to make that happen and end up eking a game out. Once Clay comes back, that gets significantly harder. The angles get harder. The help gets harder. Floor is more open now. It's tough. So hopefully, fingers crossed, Christmas Day, we get these two fully healthy and we get our best look at them. Because game one was the best look we had, and it was cool, but it wasn't. When Booker's missing, the offense is run differently now. I want to see what the Warriors do with Booker on the floor. It's everything just changes. When you take one important piece out, everything changes. And then game two is just irrelevant, in my opinion. But also, like I said, DeAndre Ayton. It's a big factor. We'll see how that plays out. Things in Portland are playing out exactly how we thought. Shout out Jazz fans, by the way. Congratulations, you guys are going to get a mention here. I told you I watched the Cavs game today. It's a great game. That was so much fun. I just have natural shit talking about Utah. I really have nothing against y'all. But I don't understand for the life of me why, when the Jazz played the Blazers, why did Portland guard Gobert like that? Now, I know none of y'all were probably watching a Jazz and Blazers game. I know none of y'all probably looked at the footage from that. Unless you follow me on Twitter, you saw I was not really highlighting. I was just showing Rudy Gobert dominance because they were giving him slips and rolls to the basket. Giving them. I'm talking Ingles. It's an Ingles and Gobert pick and roll. And you have two come up to the ball. They didn't trap him, but they came up so high that Gobert was just like, okay. Just slipped down the middle, and there's no adjustment. Nobody really rolled over, or nobody really rotated over. Nobody was really there to help. And it was just Gobert dunking. It was a whole lot of Gobert dunking. And then the one-on-one matchups where he would get a rebound over Nurk and put it back, he just dominated him there. But the pick and roll was just baffling. Even when it was not a Gobert dunk, it was, okay, yeah, two guys have all but committed to the basketball at the top, the three-point line. So now somebody has to put themselves in real bad position to stop Gobert from scoring, and now the ball is swinging, and somebody's going to get an open shot eventually. I guess that's why the Blazers defense, it was 29th last time I checked. Let's do a quick check and see if it's now 30th. Because this is another thing where I test tracks. You Portland Trailblazers. No, I'm not trying to buy no damn Portland tickets, especially right now without Dame. They are 11-13, and they are 30th in defensive rating. They are dead last. That whole situation right now is like watching all the air leave a balloon at once. Damian Lillard was actually hurt. I saw it in one game. Remember when I told you? Well, y'all saw it too. He grabbed at his abdomen. Before that, he had never been grabbing at it though, or his stomach. He'd never been grabbing or anything like that. It was just the lift wasn't there, the explosion wasn't there, the shots were short. Then I saw him grab stomach, and here we are 2 weeks later, probably since that happened. He's out with abdominal tendinopathy, whatever that means. I need that on my soundboard so bad for future, whatever that fucking means. So he's out for at least, what was it? They said 10 days or something like that. Portland is probably fluttering. What have they won without him? I see a lot of L's here. I don't remember exactly which game he went out, but they've only beaten Detroit recently. So they are losing. They're under 500. They're in serious danger of falling out of the play-in. Obviously, there's plenty of time to get it back, but Portland is normally in the West. Up to now, you hadn't really been secure up there, but they've always kind of been one of those teams where it's like, oh, they'll be in the playoffs, or at least the play-in. There's That they suck on defense. They fired Neil O'Shea. We heard the story broke a couple of weeks ago. They did the investigation. They got him up out of there. Chauncey Billups made a comment. He said, "I've never seen a team that needs its bench to inspire our starters. That shit crazy to me. It's supposed to be the other way around." That's a wild thing for I guess keeping it real, but just with how NBA media works and coach-player relationships, that's kind of wild to hear out loud, especially with everything that's going on. I'm not going to make y'all sit through one of my long, drawn-out rants of Damian Lillard and why he needs to leave Portland, because at this point, it is what it is, but it's summed up like this. They're insane in the brain if they do not blow this shit up after this season, because it's not going to happen during the season probably. If they do not get to the end of this season, that should be the final nail in the coffin. If they miss, because through all these Damian Lillard years, they've never missed. Once they miss this playoffs and they don't get anybody in the offseason for Dame, they have to blow this up. That's what I'll say there. What's likely to happen? Well, and I like Dame, so I hate that this is so accurate, but they were like, in my thread, they were like, "Dom, you know Dame's not going anywhere, bro. It's about to happen. Maybe they'll make the playoffs. They're gonna get first or second rounded. They're gonna add one very mid piece to the team. Dame is gonna make another scheme on a rap song about being loyal, and they're gonna do this again next year." So it's depressing that that's the reality, but I just think at this point, this is Dame's worst season, and all this other stuff is happening, and you're nowhere. There's no path for this roster to get to a championship in Dame's window. Just let it go, bro. Just let it go. I'm gonna let it go. Zion is also hurt, delayed. Yep, this is not three straight weeks of some Zion talk. They said he was cleared for activities, and they're like, "Oh wait, soreness in that foot." Oh wait, what did I say in the last podcast? It was very common sense. It wasn't anything you couldn't have figured out on your own. I didn't tell you anything crazy by saying I don't think he should play this season, because the weight he's on a surgically repaired foot just doesn't sound like it sounds like he needs to go through multiple different steps before actual basketball. So there's that. That's literally the Zion news. I don't even need to talk about it anymore. Just remember, Dom said Zion should not play in the 2022 season. He just shouldn't. There's just no reason. Oh, but Lopez. Now, there's one. I was listening to the podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was like, damn, I took a really hard stance when I said I would bet Bucks fans that without Lopez, they aren't going back to back. It's a really hard stance. But after I've sat with it, because I was like, did I really mean to say that? But I don't know if I would bet as hard, but I would still say that this is not great. And given the level of the teams that they were probably going to be playing to get to the finals and win the finals, it's hard, because I know Bobby Portis is the shiny new toy, but Lopez does provide a value to this team that helped them win a championship, and that would help them win a championship again. Anyways, your boy had back surgery, and he's out indefinitely. He disappeared after the game one. They waited this long, and I don't know exactly when he had the surgery, but I think they've waited until now. He's got no timetable on when he's coming back. He's a big ass guy. It's kind of feels, I don't know, but back surgery, bro. When does anybody come back from back surgery in the same season? Does that happen? That's tough. And so a shooting big man that can protect the rim and just overall space the floor at that size, that's so valuable. And so I'm not saying, I guess that's why the stance sounded so hard. I'm not saying that Lopez is the difference between them winning 60 games or even going on the streak they're on right now. Like I said, their big three hasn't been defeated this year, so there's that. But yeah, I'm not saying Lopez is the difference between them winning, I don't know, 60 games or whatever, or finishing first seed. I'm talking about winning a championship. And also because what it does to their depth. Now the Cousins signing, I did say that when they signed Cousins, So okay, they're probably kind of fearful about what's happening with Lopez. That makes me question what's happening with Lopez. And he needed surgery. Actually, had to cut him open. That's a way to phrase it. So now your big rotation, using Giannis as a big, using Portis, using DeMarcus Cousins, who had 4 fouls the other night. I don't know if he had more than 4. I don't think he fouled out. They did score 11 points though. I saw him make some really good passes too. So it's cool because obviously I don't think the deal was guaranteed. So he's playing basketball for his life, quite literally. And so it does seem like a nice cog that they're able to bring off the bench. And he's making some of the right basketball plays. So that's all good, but I don't think he brings you, I'm not sure if that brings the big man rotation up to par once it's time for the playoffs. So we'll wait and see. Still watching a lot of Bucks basketball. They're going to win a ton of regular season games off the merit of how good defensively those guys are and how the floor is spaced and how much Giannis is added. When it comes down to it, and it's like, okay, now it's time to, I don't know. It's going to be hard. Keep an eye on the Lopez news. Keep an eye on their big rotations, is what I would say. And yeah, hope Cousins works out good as he can. Gosh, am I done with the unhappy section? Knicks defense was pissed. Hornets got clipped. Yeah, looks like we are going to be moving on to things that are surprising and interesting. There's quite a bit here. This is where the meat is. I'm just not going to go any further than that comment. I talked about Christian Wood already. So that was kind of with the Rockets. Oh, so with Kemba being out, I did bring this up. I don't know if do I have a podcast graphic for this? I did see a trade. I'm not sure at all how this trade would happen, but since the Knicks are now experimenting with that point guard position and they were like, Kemba's out, I saw John Wall's name floated around in a possible trade. And you do wonder. I don't know what he's like defensively right now. And first of all, again, full transparent, I have no clue how this would actually work with his contract in a trade or if it's a buyout and he joins the Knicks. But I did see John Wall to the Knicks floated around once Kemba fell out. And I don't know if it fixes their problems. Again, they would definitely depend on what he brings defensively after not having played basketball for quite a while now. And do they... Because Kemba, and ideally you would have had some really good shooting from Kemba. So it's also like, what type of shooter does John Wall come back as? That would be a conversation we're having. And again, if he's still fat, which he was fast enough last time we saw him to make defenses rotate and move. Yeah, I guess pretty much any team that's like on a line or needs to get better could kind of use that. So it's a lot of depends. I just say all that to say I'm not sure if you're the Knicks, you go through everything you probably have to go through to get that deal to happen. Like if you can't get it off of a buyout, or if you have to do some super complex trade, I'm not sure John Wall saves you, but it was at very least interesting. That was interesting. This is the surprising / interesting section. LeBron James, his bout with COVID was interesting, but I'm gonna save that actually, because whatever, he's back. I'll save that. The NBA took away Kevin Porter Jr.'s rebound a couple of days ago for his triple-double, because it was some bullshit, like, admittedly. The ball like tapped, one of his teammates tapped it out, I think, and they yelling at him to go get it. So it was cool. They hooked the homie up with a triple-double, but they took it. So that was petty, but I guess whatever, they just don't want BS in the record books, I guess. But that started making me think, just because of the stat, what is an assist actually? I don't know how many of y'all notice it this year, but they are getting super duper duper liberal with the assists giving. Yeah, that's right. They are being very, very lenient. I'm watching the games and then, like I said, either rewatch portions or go see a player performance, and it'll be like a pass to a guy and he will dribble so many times before either getting to his spot or laying it up, and it's credited as an assist. That's why it was in the highlight package for the player. I'm just like, I thought assists as it's defined leads directly to the basket. And so I guess there's some leeway if a guy is coming downhill and you hit him and he takes some dribbles. Yeah, that's an assist. But you swing the ball across the court and he jab steps and takes 2 dribbles into a shot. Is that an assist? I don't know. Just go watch it. It's just something that I'm just putting in your ear. Go check out some of the footage. It also might be on my mind. I believe I saw a TikTok about it. So maybe subconsciously that's kind of made me look for it more. I'm like, buddy was right. They are being, cause it's popping up in every highlight package I see. Like, man, they are really just kind of giving some freebies. And the crazy part is it's not always the home court either. It'll be a guy in an away game. And the stat keeper's like, yep, that's an assist. All right. So yeah, them taking KBJ's rebound just kind of made me think, what is an assist actually? I talked a little bit about Jonas Valanciunas. Just wanted to mention that again because let's see where we are at with the 3-point shooting now. When I mentioned him the first time, I think he was leading the league in 3-point percentage. He had 7 threes in the first half against the Clippers. And that was fun because that was the day after they had to play Steph. And so they had to play Steph as a point guard and Steph as a center. Ended up losing that game. You lost to 3-point shooting JV. So leading in 3-pointers right now, here go basketball reference jumping all over the place again. Leading in 3-point percentage right now is actually Patty Mills. Yeah, he's playing really well for the Nets. Imagine if the Nets had Kyrie in this situation. We don't need to keep doing that all season, but Patty Mills could have just been an extra and not a necessity. Yeah, he's on 6, basically 7 attempts. He's at 47%. It's nice. So JV is actually down to the 3rd now. It's Mike Conley. Yep, that tracks. He busted our ass the other night. Yeah, so yeah, I just thought that was funny for the Clippers because although they are still having a decent season and the West is bad enough that they can still get up there, every now and then you remember that franchise is the Clippers and they're prone to a guy who takes 2 threes a game hitting 7 of them and a half. Happens sometimes. Jarrett Allen, bro, he's an all-star this year. Right now he's an all-star, and I have him written down because he just dubbed the Mavs earlier this week. So sometimes I talk about players and they pop up every week. I'm not just gonna keep saying the same thing I said about the player. It was just the performance against the Mavs was hilarious because I think they started Moses Brown on him. Moses Brown, just so you know, like he's cool and I think he has a nice upside, but he was also just down playing in the G League maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks before this game against Jarrett Allen. It ain't no Jarrett Allen's in the G right now. There's Taco Fall, but there's not Jarrett Allen. And Allen just absolutely feasted. He hit him with a Hakeem up and under. And then I think they were like, all right, cool. We're going to move other defenders on him, to which they really had none that could stop him. So yeah, and I watched him play today too. They obviously lost against the Jazz, but it's just so much fun because when you think of him, you probably think just some blocks and dunks, but he occasionally puts the ball on the floor and gives you a little floater too, is the thing. He has for a center that you think as a traditional big man, he's got a bag on him. He's super agile and he will, that's why he's able to work with Mobley. He'll take a pass from Mobley who was cutting into the paint and he'll take a dribble in and he'll have a nice touch and he'll finish. But yeah, he used all of that against Dallas. Watching him dominate Dallas actually reminded me of one that I didn't have written down here. It was Montrezl Harrell dubbing the Timberwolves. That was an experience because I think there was 10 dunks. I think he had 10 dunks that game. And so when I did the cut for Twitter, I literally just cut the dunks like a second each because they were all exactly the same. It was pretty much him in the dunker spot or him behind the defense on the baseline and just waiting. The Wizards offense that's being run there, coach is killing it this year because it's like I mentioned a couple of podcasts ago, it's not just Beal scoring and then having Beal isoing and then having decent teammates around him. Like, no, they're playing an actual system and cutting up. And so I think Timberwolves actually tried zone too, and that's where Harrell was just like, okay, I'm gonna stand here, wait for the ball movement to kind of cut that up. And he just took a pass and dunked it every single time. It's again and again and again. So I do recommend Wizards basketball. And that was another loss for the Timberwolves, and Cat went out too. So up and down there. But I talked a lot about Timberwolves last week. Interesting. Yeah, okay. We can go to LeCovid now. What happened with that? Matter of fact, there's another thing that just popped up for me to talk about with LeBron as well. What happened when they said he was going to be out for 10 games? And then he was playing pretty much the next night. Not that I wanted him out, because that was insane. When I saw that, I was like, okay, they're officially the 2013 Lakers now. They get one guy back, another guy goes out, or they get the same guy back and he goes out, and their defense is scrambled and they just can't figure out how to put it together. And then no one's ever on the floor together, so they can't figure it out. So you said LeBron James, he just got back and he was out for 10 games. I'm like, yeah, this is 2013 all over again. They can't build like this. And then it was like, oh yeah, actually he did a bunch of tests. He's good. All right then. But somebody wasn't happy. Somebody was not happy with the celebration he did, because there's not much more with the COVID thing. It's just, I'll leave that to your interpretation. He's back though, and that's good. That's good for the league. But I just saw this. I hadn't been on my phone much today. Kareem actually got on the video and said, or he how you put it, win at, or I don't want to say shat. Yeah, he talked down on LeBron for doing the big balls celebration, which he was fine for. Just so I can refresh my memory real quick, the LeBron here that was against the Pacers, right? Yep, right here in the picture. Yeah, that was against Indiana, so they absolutely deserved it. Things that were happening that game. But it's particularly the last comment that got me. Because whatever, if Kareem has his opinion, he basically said LeBron shouldn't have done that. Why is winning not enough for you? Da da da. Why do players do this? But it was specifically about LeBron. Then at the end, he says, "Goats don't dance." Okay, sure. Like Kobe was stone faced on the court. You were stone faced, and you told Magic Johnson that one time not to celebrate after, I think it was the game winners, like the first game of his career, was it? And Michael Jordan wasn't doing a whole lot of dance. Okay, but also, I don't think it's that much of an issue to say that, and it kind of makes it feel like there's something else behind it, because to come out and talk about, first of all, the person who, you can have an opinion regardless, doesn't matter, you're entitled to your opinion, to come out against a guy who's holding the mantle of the Lakers right now, who's pretty much of your ilk. He's in the GOAT debate now. He's got the torch for the Lakers at the moment that seems to be flaming out, but he's got it nonetheless. To come out and go that far as to say goats don't dance, like he hasn't been in the league for 19 years doing GOAT things, kind of makes it feel like there's some salt, because it's not a secret that, especially once you get to that top tier, I don't know, it kind of feels like there's been multiple guys threatened by LeBron James passing him. That's just how it's felt. I mean, and it's a clear difference, as when Kobe was here, you didn't hear those type of things. You didn't really hear him talk about LeBron like that. It was nothing but love. And so there was no, even if there was a time in somebody's mind where LeBron passed Kobe, after retirement, obviously, and you're talking about like all-time rankings, there was never, I can't recall Kobe comments about him like that. But then there's other legends, and they'll say these things, and it's just kind of comes off as, I don't know, there's something to it. There's just something to it. And with Kareem specifically, I know his goats come from his generation, and I know he's heard the LeBron GOAT talk. And also he believes in GOATs also by generation. At least that's what he said when he spoke to the basketball players at my college. They told me, he told them that yeah, every era has its own GOAT. So that's kind of how he sees it, but that just kind of felt like a weird shot from Lakers brass. I don't know, man. I don't know. Weird. In connection with LeBron, Isaiah Stewart apparently is trademarking beef stew. Actually kind of smart. Beef. They had beef. And Stewart. Yeah. That's about where that goes. The Nets rotation. Oh, no. Sorry. To finish up with the Lakers, they lost to the Clippers. And there was a lot of praising Tyronn Lue going on. And I don't know, because it kind of feels like there's this thing where there's a building tiredness of Frank Vogel, which which may or may not be fair. On one hand, it seems like it's finally starting to click. I think DeAndre Jordan has played 4 minutes in the last 2 games, so it might be starting to click that if this team is going to be successful at a championship level, it's not going to happen with DJ on the floor. So that might be starting to click, or maybe he's going to start him again. I don't know. The Dwight Howard seems like he's taking up some of those minutes. I seen he's starting with Anthony Davis, and the Clippers started big against that. There's the end of that game though, where to stop Paul George, because even if he has some shady shooting nights, anytime he pulls up in the mid-range over you, it's prone to go in. Right now, he obviously doesn't have the same team or luxury as like a DeRozan. He is having to see much more tougher coverages because his number 2 is Reggie Jackson, which is cool, but it's not a star or anything unless it's the playoffs. And he's got the goggles on. Anyways, the end of that game, Tyronn Lue basically puts Luke Kennard in as the other 3 players that aren't named Paul George, overloaded on one side of the floor. And it was very, very simple, but it was cool. It was good coaching. I give Lewis his credit after they won that Clippers series, but it's very simple. And MS the Lakers up. They would come to double PG. Kennard would just slip straight through, go to the corner, which was completely empty. Again, 3 players on the other side of the court. And he had some threes, and that was kind of gave them the space they needed to win that game. And it's another, I don't know if tough loss is the word, but it's another kind of like figure it out moment for the Lakers. Another thing to figure out. End of game schemes has to do with coaching. And then there's a lot of praise coming to Ty Lue after that. So I don't know if it was like praise at Ty Lue and talking down on Vogel. I don't know if it was of that, but I don't know if I've seen that much praise to an opposite coach before. So I don't want to say Vogel's on the hot seat. I do also, again, I've been giving them grace for a while. This roster, he hasn't had the best options. But Kendrick Nunn is apparently going to save the day, as he posted on Isaiah Hardenstein's Instagram. He said, y'all haven't seen me yet. So, okay. Hey, I agree, a 15 point per game shooting point guard would probably help rotations right now. But don't need to go into a whole lot of Lakers talk right now. Lakers Clippers was demoted for Warriors and Suns, just for Warriors and Suns to get ruined by injuries. So that's just kind of what happens when the basketball gods are in that mood. Rotations right now, Blake Griffin is out of the Nets rotation. That's happened slowly, and he's just not playing anymore. It's been a wild year for him to come in and play for this Nets team, and people were like, oh, Blake, he was hiding this, and then almost play a role on a team that could have been in the conference finals, maybe the finals. And now you come into the season with the same team, and it's kind of what I said. This probably wasn't in a podcast, but it's probably in a video. It's what I said. This team, it was built for a super team. And LaMarcus Aldridge has adapted well to more being asked of him. He's adapted really well. He's just, man, I can't believe he was about to retire. But Blake is not now. So he got to play with Kyrie a little bit last year. Then it thinned out a little as the playoffs went on. It's like, hey, we need you. Don't know his numbers from that stretch, but now again, I said I didn't think Blake came to Brooklyn to really be dependent on. I think he just wanted to hit threes sometimes off of the space that those 3 would create. And so now he's out of the rotation. And Nash, speaking of more rotation, he says, hey, we're playing KD because that's, I don't know, all we can do at the moment. He said, somebody asked him about Durant playing 40 plus minutes. He said, I don't know what options we have other than to play him less and lose more. That sounds about right, because James Harden is still seldom having good games against good teams. Had a good game against the Knicks. The Knicks are mid right now. Then they played the Bulls, and he had another bad game offensively, shooting wise. It's just, don't need to go over that again. We did that last week. Before we completely left the Lakers, by the way, I did want to throw this graphic in here, this note. Said Avery Bradley has been a disaster for the Lakers. LA is negative 107 in 468 minutes when he's been on the floor. I did just want to point out that the Warriors seem days away from having him instead of Gary Payton 2. Gary Payton II, but I like GP2. Yeah, it seemed like they were days away from that happening. No, he might have been better on the Warriors, but still. It's not even the fact that they just would have had Avery. It's that they wouldn't have had Gary, I believe. We talked a little bit about the Bulls. The Bulls and Heat with their tampering. What did they lose? They lost picks. They're gonna have to forfeit second round picks, which basically, oh yeah, sorry, back up. It had to do with Lonzo Ball and Kyle Lowry, I think. So basically, we know this has happened. We know this has been happening. Guys get calls before free agency opens. It's like, hey, how'd you already have that set up? How did he sign the contract as soon as free agency opened? So I think it was of that variety. And then obviously Lonzo was a little bit different. It was a trade too, but there's just a lot going on there. They just lost some second round picks. And so I think that just means there's going to be 59 picks in a couple of these drafts, which really costs the player and not the franchise. Because I don't think it's that many Draymond Greens out there. So yeah, it was basically like, oh, okay, just keep it down, is what that said. That punishment says, look, we know what y'all do, but don't make me do a little bit of work to find it. Practically is what happened there. So nothing. Two more things. Did want to talk about Fred VanVleet, just give him a little love, because I know on the Toronto Raptors it can be hard just because they didn't have expectations coming into this year, and then the people that are paying attention to Toronto are probably more interested in Scotty Barnes because Fred has been around for years. But he's having a season for himself, offensively and defensively. Career high in points right now, shooting the ball. The best, yeah, pretty much the best he's had from three. He's shooting 39% on 8 attempts per game. Just for reference, his highest is 41% on 3 attempts. And that was back in 2018. So killing the 3 ball, playing the highest minutes right now. He's up to 38. And then 44 from the field, which is his best mark. And yeah, it's even me, I'm more interested in Scotty, but as I am peeking in on the Raptors and wondering if they're gonna make playoffs or not, he is just stepped into this role beautifully, because I kind of always wondered after Kawhi left and then he had to play with Kyle Lowry for a while, you know, was he gonna be able to take what he did in the finals and stay relevant? And right now, he's still a great piece for them. It makes me wonder about Toronto's timeline, the way he's playing. Makes me wonder about Toronto's timeline, because you still got Siakam there, and then you got Freddie playing at what you could probably argue as an all-star level. I haven't started doing ballots yet, but you could argue that. And you're developing Scotty, developing OG, and Fred is he's 27. He's probably still got quite a bit of time left. Just wonder how fast the development for that team can come along, or what are the pieces they can get to kind of put it together in the ashes of what Kawhi left, because a lot of them are still there. I don't think OG played in that run, did he? But like as far as players, it's like 3 guys that are still there from that, and then you get gifted Scotty Barnes. So let's see what happens. But yeah, Fred VanVleet was absolutely worth a mention right now. He's killing it. Just the Raptors are, I guess, pretty much in a tough situation in this Eastern Conference. They are, yeah, they're even sitting outside of the play-in right now by 2 games, and so are the Knicks. And then in the play-in are teams like Philly and Atlanta and Cleveland and Charlotte, all healthy. Those are teams that probably should be higher than that. So very tough situation. So then that makes me wonder, like, what do you really want if you're Toronto right now? You want to speed this up a little bit? I don't know. But Freddie had to get that. And then I decided I talked about Ingram a little bit, but I did want to just point out my favorite move in his bag. It's a very up and down season for him. Again, that's just how it is in New Orleans, especially when you're looking and saying Zion's probably not coming back. So some game, like the beginning of the season, I thought he was about to take a massive step, and it's kind of evened out a little bit. And then now it's just like every other game. It's like it's there, then it's not there, and it's there. Anyways, the pull up that he does, where he dribbles, puts it in his left hand, and basically goes into like a hezi motion as he's about to, it looks like he's about to drive, and he pulls up. That is directly from T-Mac, guys. That's who I was thinking about when I tweeted that. Fair to say KD, because what I realized after looking at it was the reason the move brought up T-Mac for me was because the wingspan. That's really what it is. He's got just super long arms. T-Mac also had a pretty long wingspan as well. And so when he did that pull up, it was, yeah, it looked like Slender Man, basically. You couldn't really tell what he was going to do. So it looked exactly like T-Mac. But the thing that I noticed is a lot of people have pretty much borrowed that from Mac, because I saw DeRozan do it last night, and then KD has been doing it. But I don't know, there's something about Ingram's that he does it a lot throughout the season. There's something about his that looks exactly like Mac's. So I decided to bring that up. I had to give a little BI love because he's in a tough place. Louisiana. That brings us out of the surprising section into the wrap up of the show. Where you go G League tweets, and then I just had to talk about 2K just a little bit. Just note in the G League, Luka Samanic right now is balling. If I am not mistaken, this is the guy that the Spurs cut because he, in the preseason, kind of walked back on defense. There was a possession against Orlando, and I think he was still trying to make the roster. I think he turned it over or something happened. The ball was turned over. I think he just turned around and just kind of walked back, and Spurs were like, all right, that's enough. We'll see you. Well, he's in the G right now, and he doesn't really seem like he belongs there. I'm not gonna lie to you. He's taking damn near 20 shots a game. It's at 45%. 6 of those are threes right now. I'm not gonna lie, his 3-point percentage is shockingly low from what I see on tape. But I think he's like the second leading scorer of the league right now. That 3-point percentage really cannot be right from what I've seen. Honestly, none of this can be right. There we go. None of it is right because I'm not gonna lie to you, the G League website is just all over the place when it comes to stats. I'm sorry, y'all. None of that was right. I was about to say, I watched these. I watched too much footage for that to be true. Here we go. That man's 3-point percentage right now is 41%. Boy, man, look. Because I was like, I see this guy. I watch him play, and the 3-point percentage said 29%. I was like, wait a minute. I saw 21 points a game. I'm like, okay, that's not happening. No, he's averaging 28 right now. He's averaging 28 and 11, which is just, and 90% from three. I mean, my bad, 90% from the free throw line. 55% from the field. He's just like a created player out there. He's 6'10", so he's got size. He puts the ball on the floor. It's hard for me not to imagine. It's hard for me to imagine with the way he's playing, he's not going to get called up, especially with the Knicks are trying to. I mean, on one hand, I don't know, because the Knicks are already trying to figure out what to do with their offense. So even if he did get called up, he wouldn't be able to do nearly what he's doing in the G League. As far as putting the ball on the floor, he would probably be relegated to catch and shoot. And they're trying to figure out so many roles right now. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's everything right now, and it's so funny because this is a guy that in the NBA he was probably like a generic when you looked on 2K. He's damn near a 30-10 guy out here. Something about Lucas, man. Something about Lucas. Something about that last the itch that goes at the end of the names. There's something about that, bro. A call, yeah, but I'm not sure as far as what a call up, because it would be the Knicks, and I'm not really sure the role he would play. But we'll see if he ever does get a legitimate role here, because sometimes like I watch these guys, I see the talent there, and I just go, man, if they were playing on a team where they could actually even try to do that for more than one possession, maybe there'd be something there. So don't expect a Luka Samanic versus Doncic finals or anything. I just wanted to put that in your ear, since you're absolutely not watching the Westchester Knicks right now. But that's happening. Let's go to some tweets. I do just want to also point out, I might just say Scoot Henderson's name at the end of every G League section. I talked about him last week. It seems like a little bit of Twitter starting to catch on, but because he's 17 years old and he can't even go to the NBA till 2023, there's not hype yet. But just remember Scoot Henderson. I talked about him in detail last week. Just remember Scoot Henderson. That's a grown man at 17 years old coming into the league to a stadium near you about a year or so. I'll probably just mention it at the end of this segment every time. All right, some tweets. First of all, there was just an insane clutch points graphic, but I'll save that. This one, tweets could mean, honestly, I call it tweets, but just like when I did Twitter Police, it could pretty much come from anywhere. YouTube comment section, Facebook. This one came from the YouTube comment section. It was funny because I talked about Curry last week in his 2016 versus last season and now. And I guess he had one bad game. So I seen this comment that said, any true Dubs and Curry fan knows 15-16 unanimous MVP season will always be unmatched. Curry had 2 games that entire year where he played poorly against Lakers and Spurs. Steph will be fine, but I just don't like the silly hot takes about how he's better now than 16. 16, he wasn't even human. I agree with you that stats of 16 will never be matched. But I think as a player, like as the player you're watching, I think he's grown past that. I think that's where, but obviously by numbers, there's so many unbreakable and unbeatable things that he did that year. It'll probably be hard to, that's why I was unanimous. It'll be hard to ever argue over that. But when you're watching him like last season play how he played with the talent that he was given around him and Draymond Green not looking at the rim, that's where I say he's shown that he's a better player than he was in 16. I think I would add this was probably comparing Curry to himself. That's where we're at with Steph Curry, by the way, in case you were wondering. We were at the point with Steph Curry of comparing him to himself as a point guard. But yeah, no, at the point that like he was averaging 32 points a game efficiently, by the way. Last year is what I'm talking about. He's averaging 32 points a game efficiently, which was more than he did in 2016. With the space that he had and finishing, it wasn't just him chucking up threes, it was finishing as well. Taking as many shots as he did, he had to take more shots than 2016, almost 2 more shots than he did. That's where I kind of say we've seen a better, we have seen a better version of Curry since then. But the season itself, again, Golden State was blessed with health all the way up until the end of the regular season. So guys, weren't really out like that. They were able to just kind of run a system and in games, just snap of a finger. But I think we have seen better from him this season. Obviously right now, that's the thing though about calling it, it's not a hot take. I think the hot take is like right now where he's had a small slump, and he didn't start the season at his best either. But this comment comes during a slump though, which was right after a hot streak. So it's like up and down. But it's a whole different thing this year. He doesn't even have to be on the type of timing he was last year, unless somebody goes out. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't help right now that through a quarter of this year, he's at 44% from the field. It is a little bit different, but I think we've seen a better Curry. I cannot argue with it being last year. Like you can't, no numbers or anything will convince me that 16 was better than what happened last year. You had him last year with his regular Warriors team. I don't know, because who knows, right? It looks totally different because then he doesn't have to do the things that he did. But I will say like that was his greatest season. He almost willed that team to the playoffs. But yeah, that comment came out after we talked about it on the podcast last week, so I wanted that to be in. There was There was a tweet where I agree with Ball Don't Stop. I know he says a lot of things that a lot of people don't agree with. That's why I say it like that. I even see some things where it's like, I don't necessarily agree with that. But he did say, how is Devin Booker not in the MVP race? People have a disrespectful tendency to get bored of bucket getters. It's far and away the most important thing in basketball and always has been. He was a win away from finals MVP because of it. Aside from the Hooper conversation that this will probably lead to or whatever, again, we talked about this last week. I realized listening back to the podcast where I basically said, and answering Marcus Brownlee's question about Chris Paul being the MVP, I said it would be more likely to get to Booker if it was to go to someone on the Suns. But then I realized after saying that, like, wait a minute, they're not rating him like that. He's not even in the race, and Chris Paul is 5th. So if the Suns did end up taking it, it's actually right now would be on track to go to Chris Paul, and Booker would have a chance. You can argue whatever you want about Chris Paul and Devin Booker, best player, MVP of that team, whatever. I agree with Baldo Stop. I can't believe he's not in the MVP race. Before the hamstring, he's having a magnificent season. I would say the best player on the Suns was him. And what Chris Paul is killing from the mid-range right now, unassisted, by the way, because obviously he can create with the ball. He's the point guard. He don't need to be assisted a whole lot. So he is killing, but Book was just that, okay, Maybe we're just going to him on back-to-back possessions, or this play is broken down, just go get us a bucket. He's been doing that, and he's been doing that well so far. And so I don't know if it's just that there's so much talent right now, because again, it's like I said last week, he's not gonna win it, not gonna get it over Giannis or Jokic probably, or anybody. But for him to not be in the race shocked me. Not even in the race shocked me. You got 40% from 3 right now. On pretty good volume too. Yeah, I agree with him, but also I don't spend too much time on it, just because again, it's gonna be between a couple of players at the end. It's gonna be between that like really top tier, like super duper top tier, but not in the damn race. I'll tell you who's not in the race, and who's not, as it stands right now, a top 10 player in the league through this first 20 something games. James Harden. And there was a tweet that said, you're gonna sit here and lie to my face and tell me I didn't. There we go. I was about to say, I'm sorry, but you cannot give this version of James Harden a max contract. Ooh, that one hit us, didn't we? We done forgot about that. That Harden is actually approaching free agency. I look up things that I know off the top of my head, just because I don't want to like render a whole podcast and realize I said something confidently that was just factually wrong. It probably has happened, but I try to stop it from happening. Looking at his contract, he is about to be, yeah, 21-22 he has a player option that he's not really talked about yet. All you said was at the beginning was the same thing every player would say. I like it here. It's hard to see me leaving. But Kyrie don't sound like he's gonna be able to play for a New York basketball team again with Optimus pulling up. And now Harden is still not looking as explosive. It's not playing well. But what is another team out there going to give him? I still think if you're the Nets, it's probably one of those situations where let's say he finished the season like this, which I'm holding on to my stance. I don't think that he will. I'm hanging on to that for dear life, that he's not going to finish the season down bad. But if he did extrapolate out and he's still not shooting that good from 3, not getting his fouls, he's not explosive, so he's basically relegated to playmaking, you give that a max. If you're the Nets, you can't count on Kyrie coming back. You lose Harden. Now you're just left with KD and pieces, which is not ideal the way the NBA looks right now. So yeah, you're just kind of stuck, because at worst case scenario, you finally trade Kyrie for some pieces to make this team fit a little bit better and make things easier on Harden, to where maybe you don't necessarily need him to be like Houston Harden. He can still provide playmaking and score sometimes. But that is, yeah, if this really is him heading downhill, though, it is food for thought. It is food for thought. But I don't think anything crazy like that's happening. I think one way or another, Harden's going to get his money from somewhere. But I had totally forgotten that he is at the end of this contract, so did want to put that one out there. Last one is just this clutch points graphic, man. What the hell? It's clutch points put out a graphic about Karl Towns and his mother, and he said, "I know it's not good to eat, but it's a memento." As one of the last things she gave me. Karl Towns still has the cake his mother gave him in 2019. That is super duper sad. I really feel for that man. But this graphic has him sitting at a table, like a lunch table, with the cake, and his mother behind him glowing. Yeah, I'm gonna just leave that. I just put that in your ear. You've probably seen it. In clutch points, normally it's like OD with the graphics, but what the hell with this? Just why? Somebody sat and actually put time into that and was like, "This is it." This week, I'm going to end the podcast by talking about 2K a little bit. Full disclosure. All right, man, I'm so tired from this weekend and I have to get ready for a trip. I am going to LA at the end of this week on Thursday, flying out to LA to to actually be on a 2K stream with, as I understand it, Alexis Morgan, and then Paul George and Breonna Stewart are going to be there. And so that's cool. But I just say that to say, no matter what 2K I end up on, no matter what 2K work, like I work for their league this year, no matter where I end up or what I end up doing with 2K, it's not going to stop me from like talking about the game how I want to talk about it. I've talked about it since forever now, and I've been playing it since 2K7, 2K8, so it's pretty cool to get to actually work with them. But it'll never stop me from, like, if I think a certain thing, it'll never stop me from saying that certain thing. That being said, I dropped the video. It's like one of the only 2K videos on the channel for this year at the beginning about how the launch, how I liked the game. Me and my friends have been playing it. They've made a lot of updates, man. They've made a lot of updates. I am going to start with the bad, though. Like, just in general, because I know it's been a while since y'all heard me talk about 2K. I have mostly enjoyed playing it with friends. And I actually even enjoyed the Play Now Online bit. I just really hadn't had time. But I really enjoy playing Play Now Online. And I think that shooting is easy enough this year. Or easy enough once you... I say that like me and Kobe didn't play so many games. That's why I got as good at shooting as I did. Because we played hundreds and hundreds of games. So I enjoyed the game. But with this season reward this year, what in the hell? It started off cool. The go-kart, that was a practical thing. It's like, all right, I actually wanted the go-kart to get to level 40 so I could don't have to skateboard or rollerblade around the city. Then in this season, like at level 30 something, you get a tricycle, which was also cool. I like the tricycle, whatever. It's cool. And maybe you don't think it's cool, but I thought it was cool. But the level 40 reward was the skeleton. And I was like, that's cool, but I don't feel good about playing the game all this time to go get a skeleton. The go-kart was cool, it was practical. Had me thinking it was gonna be something really worth spending my time on. Then they were just like, here, a skeleton. Which I assume you're gonna be able to buy eventually because they just put the go-karts on sale for 400,000 VC. So if you happen to have 400k VC somewhere sitting around, you could buy one go-kart. That's insane. I think it comes out to $100 US dollars. This season, the reward is an animated like Christmas outfit to go with season 3 being iced out. So it's animated snowflakes that go from the hat to the shirt to the pants. All right, bro, come on now. That's the level 40 reward. It takes a lot of games to get to level 40, man. Because I have time and me, Nikias, and Kobe and whoever else, we get on and play a lot for hours. I don't notice how much we actually put into the game to get to level 40 when we did. I got it this season 1. They hit level 40 the next season. I did not. I didn't play it enough. But yeah, this outfit is a crazy level 40 reward. I'm not sure if the glider is still, I was told, or I saw that a glider was going to be like the level 30 reward. So that's cool. I guess they're trying to make it more attainable for people, the cool stuff. But still, if you do put the time in to hit level 40, first of all, if I want to hit level 40, there has to be something besides, at least for me, there has to be something besides legend behind it. I really want to feel like at the end of that season, I got something cool. That's insane. That's an insane level 40 reward. I cannot believe whoever made that decision. I just that's insane, bro. But more importantly, whatever, if you don't play that, how about the patch? When I was making 2K videos on this channel, I made a video just absolutely roasting these kids that we played that were left to right spammers. Now, here's the thing about left to right. Since it's gone now, we can have some conversations about it. I think it's gone anyways. It was gone, and then they dropped another patch, so I'm actually not sure what that one did. But the first patch nerfed the speed. So you couldn't just get a 5-foot build and run left and right, and then eventually get a 3 once you finally get open. I will say, like, we had a lot of success stopping those type of teams. It was just hard because you can't make one mistake against those builds. There's all types of shooting badges. Shooting is already easier this year. If you make one mistake on a left right 5-foot build when they were able to boost like that, you're getting greened. It's happening. But it was like, those were the only teams we would ever lose to. Because Nikias is a really smart player. I'm a smart player. Kobe is he's a demon. And so we would get on and run up 8 games straight and be about to get the fireball and run in, and then we run into the typical park in the 3, the left right guy, the one that stands in the corner, and the guy who comes up and sets the screen. And we would just talk about it. We stopped talking about it after a while because how much can you complain? But I just felt like it was a really boring way to play the game, and people complain about the game being boring, but then they get on and do that. It was the meta. I guess that's why 2K changed it, because they realized the meta was complete bullshit. And we never played like that. We had the option to play like that, but we didn't. We got on and we ran an actual offense and screened for each other and found the open man. It's more fun than one of us just sitting in the corner while somebody runs back and forth. So, but they are slow now. Those 5-foot builds, if they didn't touch that, they're dead. We played, but it also, in the little sample size we had, it made the game better. Which, by the way, oh man, what is stage like now? I gotta talk to Kobe about that. And what is stage like now that left right is going? Because stage was pretty much all of those 5-foot builds playing for VC. That's what stage was. You go in there and it's literally just somebody running left and right. But you're playing for money at that point, so I guess why not use the meta? What we got in rec, and we ran into what was essentially a pro-am squad, and they actually had to do things. They had the 5-foot build, but their shooting guard was now running around like Ray Allen and trying to get open, actually doing things. The point guard even. I guess a way to hack it is to use the misdirection move. I know Bear the Beast, he's a 2K pro player. He put out the video on how to do misdirection dribbling. It's a fire move. That's one of the ways you can kind of still get open off of it. But yeah, it felt like I was playing against like an actual offense, which was way cooler and way more fun. Because that might be one of the reasons I didn't play as much in season 2, just because you knew when you play for hours, you're going to run into those squads. You're going to run into so many of them. It's just not as entertaining. Whatever, if you play like that, you play like that. But at a certain point, it's just not really entertaining to keep defending it. But like I said, as I know now, it's gone. And people were mad. People were mad. I even saw some pros mad about it. Just insane to me, but I saw that. Then I saw a healthy amount of people that were like, thank God this bullshit is dead. Where I stand on it, thank God that bullshit is dead. We could have played like that. We could have left righted for hours and won every game, but it just wasn't fun to do, so we didn't. There's just nothing really good about it. So yeah, that's what's happening with 2K. That's a little bit. I had the selling go cards, level 40 reward, the patch. Left right has been infamous for a while. I don't know if it's because I played more park this year, but it was just really, really bad. And so many of those builds had it that I actually don't know what people are bringing to the park now, because I've only played once or twice since the patch. Yeah, that's what's happening with 2K. But I'll be out there playing against Paul George. I'm not 100% clear on if I'm actually playing him or if he's playing Breonna Stewart and we're talking to him. I'll be more clear on that tomorrow. I think it'll be on the NBA Twitch channel, or maybe it'll be on the 2K Twitch channel. There'll be more details with that. Well, anyways, this podcast is over. Please rate it accordingly on like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and hit the like on YouTube or whatever. Been here for a couple of hours just shooting shits about basketball. Now I gotta put it all together. I appreciate you listening, and I'll see you next week.